There is one motorcycle entrance in cinema history that made an entire generation walk straight into a dealership. No dialogue, no explanation, just a chrome-loaded American heavyweight rolling out of a truck stop in the California desert with a shotgun across the tank, and Arnold Schwarzenegger in a leather jacket. One slow-motion shell ejection, one riff of Guns N' Roses, and an entire product line changed forever. The bike was a Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, and for 34 years, the question of what actually happened to it after filming Wrapped has been answered wrong more times than it's been answered right. Hi, my name is Johnny, and this is American Muscle. T2, and why it matters. Before we talk about the bike, we need to talk about the film. Because Terminator 2, Judgment Day is not just a sequel, it is a detonation. James Cameron spent 4 years building the follow-up to his 1984 original, secured a budget of approximately $102 million, which made it the most expensive film ever produced at the time, and then proceeded to invent modern blockbuster cinema in a single summer. The film opened on July 3, 1991. It grossed $519 million worldwide. It won 4 Academy Awards. The liquid metal T-1000 became the defining special effect of its decade. None of that is what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the other thing. The thing that didn't need a computer to make an impression. Arnold Schwarzenegger's T-800 is the most recognizable screen character of the 1990s. The coat, the glasses, the accent that somehow never gets old. But there's a reason the film's marketing leaned so hard on that first real appearance. The truck stop sequence. Arnold walks out in full Terminator kit, scans the room, picks his targets, and then walks out to the parking lot and gets on a motorcycle. That motorcycle is not a prop. It is not dressed up or modified beyond its factory configuration. What you're seeing on screen is what you could walk into a dealership and buy. That specificity is part of what makes the scene work. The Terminator doesn't need a custom vehicle. He finds the most intimidating thing in the parking lot and rides away on it. And in 1991, the most intimidating thing in any parking lot was a Fat Boy. The bike itself. What is a Fat Boy? Let's talk about what a Fat Boy actually is, because this matters to understanding why Cameron and his team chose it. The Harley-Davidson FLS-TF Fat Boy was introduced in 1990, brand new model, first year of production. Think about that for a second. The bike that appeared in Terminator 2 was, at the time of filming, essentially a current model year motorcycle. Cameron wasn't reaching back into Americana for a classic. He was putting the newest, most aggressively styled thing Harley made on the biggest screen in the world. The Fat Boy sits on Harley's Softail chassis, which uses a hidden rear suspension system to mimic the hardtail look of older choppers while actually delivering a functional ride. The engine is the Evolution V-Twin, 80 cubic inches of displacement, air-cooled, producing somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 to 60 horsepower at the crank. Those numbers sound modest until you factor in the torque curve, which is long and lazy and hits you like a freight elevator rather than a sports car. It pulls rather than revs. That characteristic rumble at idle, the one that carries a block and a half on a still morning, is entirely real and entirely unmodified. What separated the Fat Boy visually from the rest of the Harley lineup was the wheel treatment. Solid cast aluminum disc wheels front and rear, completely eliminating the spoke aesthetic that defined most Harleys of the era. Combined with wide, meaty tires, a wide front fork, and a general silhouette that was just wider and heavier looking than anything else in the showroom, the Fat Boy looked like it was designed to intimidate, which, whether intentional or not, made it an almost absurdly perfect choice for a film about a machine sent from the future to kill you. The production color on the hero bike was a gray metallic finish Harley called silver. No chrome upgrades, no aftermarket additions. The shotgun holster rigged to the front fork was a production addition. Everything else was factory. That restraint was a deliberate choice, and it was the right one. The bike needed to look like something that belonged in the world, not something that had been dressed up for a movie. The production story. Now let's get into the production. And this is where the story starts to get interesting, because the on-set history of the Terminator 2 motorcycles is both better documented and more complicated than most people realize. Harley-Davidson did not stumble into this placement. The company was actively involved in the production at a level that went beyond a simple loan agreement. By 1991, Harley had completed one of the most remarkable corporate turnarounds in American manufacturing history. The company had nearly gone under in the early 1980s, bought itself back from AMF, restructured, and by the late 80s was producing bikes that were genuinely competitive again. The Fat Boy launch in 1990 was a statement of confidence. And when James Cameron came calling about a film that would be seen by every human being on the planet, Harley's marketing department understood exactly what was happening. Multiple bikes were supplied to the production. The number most frequently cited is 3, which tracks with standard practice. 1 hero bike for close-up work and anything the camera needed to see clearly, 1 or 2 stunt machines built or configured for the sequences that could damage or destroy a motorcycle. The hero bike is the one that gets the close-up treatment, the detail shots, the work that requires the camera to actually live with the machine. The stunt bikes take the punishment. The riding sequences in the film are genuinely impressive. The concrete flood channel chase where the T-1000 pursues the heroes in a semi-truck, while the T-800 rides alongside on the Fat Boy, is one of the great practical stunt sequences of the era. The Los Angeles River Channel, which locals know as the concrete flood control infrastructure that runs through the San Fernando Valley, became one of the most recognizable film locations in action movie history, partly because of this sequence. If you've ever driven past it on the 405, you've thought about this movie. Don't pretend you haven't. The precision riding required for the production was handled by a stunt team, but Schwarzenegger did perform some of the riding himself, which, given the size and weight of a Fat Boy at low speed and tight quarters, is not nothing. The motorcycle weighs approximately 640 pounds. Maneuvering it at walking pace on a film set with cameras and crew and cable runs everywhere requires actual skill. Arnold had it. The detail that most people miss is the shotgun. The lever action rifle holstered on the front fork of the Fat Boy is a 1987 Winchester model 1887. The prop department modified it for one-handed operation, cutting the stock and fitting a custom loop that allowed Arnold to spin cock it with a single wrist rotation. That modification was designed specifically around the motorcycle. The image of the Terminator riding one-handed, shotgun spinning in the other hand, shell arcing through the air in slow motion, is one of the most reproduced images in 1990s cinema. The bike is the base layer of that entire composition. Without the Fat Boy's visual weight and presence, that shot doesn't work the same way. The motorcycle is doing half the storytelling. Harley-Davidson's role and the marketing explosion. Here's something the bike community talks about that the general film audience almost never does. Terminator 2 didn't just feature a Harley-Davidson. It functionally handed the company a decade-long sales event that no marketing department could have planned, budgeted for, or manufactured on purpose. Let's back up for a second because context matters here. By 1991, Harley had already pulled off one of the great American corporate comeback stories. The company nearly collapsed in the early 1980s, drowning under AMF ownership and Japanese competition that was building better, more reliable motorcycles at lower prices. Harley bought itself back, restructured, invested in quality control, and by the late 80s was producing bikes people actually wanted again. The Fat Boy launch in 1990 was a confident statement from a company that had clawed its way back from the edge, and then James Cameron handed them a rocket. In the years following the film's release, Fat Boy sales didn't just increase, they climbed to the point where the model became one of the best-selling in Harley's entire lineup. Dealerships across the country reported walk-in customers asking for the same thing. Not the FLSTF, not the Softail, the Terminator bike. That's what people said at the counter, the Terminator bike. And Harley's marketing team, to their considerable credit, understood exactly what they were holding and leaned into it completely. Limited edition variants appeared. The visual language of the Fat Boy, the disc wheels, the wide low stance, the solid silver presence, showed up in Harley advertising throughout the decade in ways that were clearly and deliberately calibrated to echo that truck stop parking lot. Think about the economics of what happened here. Harley provided 3 bikes, full factory cooperation, and access during production. In exchange, they received a scene that played in front of hundreds of millions of people across every market on Earth, repeated endlessly on home video, cable, and eventually streaming for over 30 years and counting. There is no advertising buy in history that produces that return. You cannot purchase what Terminator 2 gave Harley-Davidson. You can only earn it by being the right product in the right place at exactly the right moment. They were. The Fat Boy is still in production today. 35 years of engine generations, frame revisions, and styling updates, and the thing still looks like itself. The disc wheels are still there. The wide stance is still there. That unmistakable silhouette, the one that made Arnold look like he belonged on it from a different century, is still baked into every single version that rolls off the Milwaukee line. The ghost of 1991 is in every one of them. And that, more than any museum display or auction result or collector provenance argument, is the film's permanent and irreversible contribution to motorcycle history. The bike outlasted the movie. It just keeps going, kind of like the thing that was riding it. Where did the hero bike go? Now, the part you're actually here for. What happened to the hero bike after filming wrapped? The honest answer involves more uncertainty than most people are comfortable with. And I'm going to give it to you straight, because that's what we do here. What is confirmed is this. After production closed on Terminator 2 in 1991, the hero Fat Boy did not go into a studio archive. It did not go into a Harley-Davidson corporate collection. It was not flagged by anyone at TriStar Pictures for long-term preservation. This was standard practice for the era. Film vehicles were production assets. When the production ended, the assets were dispersed. No one was thinking about franchise longevity or collector value in 1991 in the way that studios think about it now. For a period following production, the bike moved through what can best be described as a loose orbit around Hollywood memorabilia culture. It surfaced in promotional contexts, appeared at events, and was referenced in Harley-Davidson marketing materials in ways that suggested the company maintained some form of custody, or at least awareness of its location. But confirmed, documented, verifiable chain of custody from the production wrap to a specific current location is where the trail gets complicated. The bike has been displayed publicly on at least 2 confirmed occasions. The first was at the Harley-Davidson Museum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which opened in 2008. The museum is a serious institution, 130,000 square feet dedicated to the history of the company and its machines. A Fat Boy connected to Terminator 2 appeared there, and if you visited, you may have seen it. However, the documentation around which specific bike, hero, or stunt, and the provenance chain connecting it to the production has been a point of ongoing discussion in the collector community. The museum has been careful in how it characterizes the vehicle, which is actually the responsible thing to do. Claiming screen use provenance without airtight documentation is how myths get manufactured. The second confirmed public appearance came through a licensing and display arrangement connected to Universal Studios theme park operations, where Terminator-related attractions created natural venues for production vehicles. Again, which bike, under what documentation, is where the certainty starts to soften. What the collector community has established through years of forum research, production document requests, and conversations with crew members is that at least one of the production Fat Boys ended up in private hands. The timeline of that transition, somewhere in the mid to late 1990s, aligns with the period when Hollywood memorabilia culture was beginning to develop as a serious collector market, but before the major auction houses had established the rigorous provenance standards that exist today, which means a vehicle could change hands in that window without the kind of paperwork that would make authentication airtight 20 years later. There have been auction listings over the years claiming to offer the Terminator to Fat Boy. Some of these have been straightforwardly fraudulent, bikes dressed to match the film with no credible production connection whatsoever. Others have been more ambiguous, sellers with partial documentation, secondhand provenance claims, and the kind of story that sounds right but can't be fully verified. The challenge with a motorcycle that looks completely stock is that replication is trivially easy. A 1990 or 1991 Fat Boy in silver with a period-correct lever-action rifle in a fork-mounted holster is something any knowledgeable builder could assemble in a weekend. Without a VIN that traces directly to the production and documentation connecting that VIN to the film, you are buying a story, not a motorcycle. The most credible current lead places the hero bike in a private collection, believed to be somewhere in the western United States, held by a collector who acquired it through a chain that traces back to the production period. That lead has been reported on in the motorcycle press with appropriate hedging. No VIN has been publicly confirmed. No auction has produced it with verified documentation. It is the most plausible thread currently available, and it remains unresolved. The stunt bikes, a separate story. The stunt machines have a separate and in some ways simpler story, which is its own kind of sad. The stunt machines built for the production sequences were, by definition, not preserved with the same care as the hero bike. Stunt vehicles exist to take damage. They're built to be sacrificed so the hero machine stays pristine. And when production wraps, they often don't survive in anything close to screen-accurate condition. Of the estimated 2 stunt Fat Boys used during Terminator 2 production, one has a documented trail that ends in a display context in the early 2000s, modified from its stunt configuration back towards something resembling the hero bike's appearance, which is both understandable and frustrating from a preservation standpoint. The modifications make authentication harder, not easier. When you rebuild a stunt bike to look like the hero bike, you've created an ambiguity that benefits no one, except people trying to sell something they can't fully document. The second stunt machine is, as of this writing, unaccounted for. It went into the standard post-production disposal pipeline, and the trail dries up sometime in the mid-1990s. Could be in private hands, could have been parted out, could be sitting in a garage somewhere with an owner who has no idea what they're looking at. That last possibility is not as remote as it sounds. It happened with the Fast and the Furious trucks. It nearly happened with the Dirty Mary Crazy Larry Charger. It is the default outcome for a vehicle that re-enters civilian life with no one actively protecting its identity. The myth, the replica, culture, and why it still matters. The replica culture that grew up around this motorcycle deserves its own mention because it tells you something important about the bike's cultural footprint. Within a few years of Terminator 2's release, builders across the country were constructing period-accurate copies of the Fat Boy from the film. Fork-mounted rifle holders, matching color, matching wheels, matching everything. By the late 1990s, Harley clubs and custom shows regularly featured Terminator tribute builds. By the 2000s, the builds had gotten so precise that distinguishing a well-researched replica from a production vehicle without documentation became genuinely difficult. This is not unique to this film. The same thing happened with the Bullitt Mustang, the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am, the Dukes of Hazzard Charger. When a movie vehicle becomes deeply embedded in popular culture, the replica ecosystem grows up around it, and eventually the replicas outnumber any real production vehicles by a ratio that makes authentication essential and often impossible. The Fat Boy replica community is enormous, passionate, and builds to a standard that would fool a casual observer every single time. What this means practically is that if you're at a show and someone points to a Fat Boy and says, "That's the one from the movie," the correct response is to ask for the documentation before you believe a single word. Not because people are necessarily lying. Some of them genuinely believe what they're saying, but because the ecosystem of lookalike bikes is so large that confidence without paperwork is just enthusiasm wearing a leather jacket. And enthusiasm, however genuine, is not provenance. The unsolved thread. Here's what we still don't know. And I want to be clear about this because I think honesty about the gaps matters more than a tidy ending. The confirmed location of the hero, Fat Boy from Terminator 2, with verified VIN documentation connecting it to the production, is not publicly established as of this recording. The most credible lead points to a private Western collection. That lead has not been publicly confirmed with the kind of documentation that ends the conversation. The second stunt bike is unaccounted for. The full financial terms of any post-production transfer, if such records even exist, have not surfaced. What we do know is that at least one production Fat Boy is believed to be intact in private hands, and connected to people who are aware of what they have. That's a better outcome than a lot of movie vehicles get. It's not as good as a verified museum placement with a clean chain of custody, but it's better than a backyard in Sun Valley, and a whole lot better than a junkyard in Los Angeles. The bike is out there. The question is whether it ever comes out in a way that settles the story once and for all. Given the value, given the cultural weight, given what comparable film vehicles have sold for at auction. The economics of disclosure are interesting. A verified hero Fat Boy from Terminator 2 with airtight documentation would be one of the most significant movie vehicle auction lots in history. We're talking about a machine that changed an industry, anchored one of the most successful films ever made, and has been culturally referenced continuously for 34 years. Whoever has it knows what they have. The only question is whether they ever decide the world gets to know too. If this one hit different, drop a comment below. Tell me what you think happened to that second stunt bike. Tell me if you've seen something that doesn't add up. The comment section on this channel is where the real research sometimes starts, and I read every single one. If you're new here, I'm Johnny, this is American Muscle, and we do this every week. Real stories, real machines, no filler. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Because the next one is, and I genuinely mean this, even better than this one. We'll see you in the next lane.